Welcome to Necessary Roughness, presented to you by Stadium Rant. This is week 15, and what a week it was. Holy week 15, Batman. I'm joined by my fabulous co-host and producer. I've got John, Nick, of course. Producer Chris is with me. Meg Hall here. I think when we were putting the run of show together, like I just literally just started taking out everything. So I'm like, nope, we got to talk about all these games. There's a ton of games that happened. It was a historic weekend for the NFL on a number of levels. And unfortunately, Chris and I are going to have to talk about this Colts Vikings game. It seems like, well, Chris is probably happy. I'll share my thoughts on it, but it seems like all of us had some crazy games. All of us who are fans here of the Vikings, the Bills, Colts. We all had crazy games, but I've got a list of 7 games that we're going to go through in the winner's circle. We're going to talk about that. Also, this is the playoffs. The playoffs are now in the realm for a lot of teams, and there's several different clinching scenarios that we could talk through. And of course, we're going to do the rapid fire pick'em for week 16. So let's just start with the obvious one in the room. Let's just get it out of the way. Colts Vikings. It was the largest comeback in NFL history, and I'll say this. John, I think, tagged us while this game was going on. He's like, hey, you guys told me that the Colts wouldn't be able to score more than 20 points. And I think I responded back and I was like, to be honest with you, I'm just as shocked as you are. This game was wild from start to finish. It started with, as you probably know from this game, the Colts starting well with lots of help from their defense. Kirk Cousins was not playing well early on. Dalvin Cook has a fumble, like all kinds of things. The sky was falling in the first half. So, Chris, let's talk about it. Let's start there. I think you're probably happier than anybody that we protected our draft pick. But I have a question for you. It's very interesting. So, Justin and I got into this conversation, and Justin is a contributing writer for Stadium Rant, but he got into this conversation about it being the defense's fault or the offense's fault. And Justin's of the opinion that it's on the defense for letting this game happen. I'm of the opinion that it's on the offense, but I want to know what you think. What are your thoughts of how we got here?
So I'm of the opinion that it's of the it's of the offense's fault. And the reason I say that is, I understand in the second half, it seemed like the defense just collapsed. But the first half, ultimately, the game was being carried by the defense and special teams. Our special teams came up with what? We had 5 field goals, 3 extra
Yes.
points, and a touchdown on special teams. So that's 18, 24 points from our special teams. Our
Yeah.
offense had 1 touchdown. Defense had a touchdown. Our defense put up as many points as our offense. Our special teams put up 24 points. So when your offense is controlling the clock the whole first half, I believe we had like a total of 18 minutes in time of possession in the first half. I think it was like 10 in the first quarter, 8 in the second quarter, or maybe, flip it vice versa, whatever. And then in the second half, it was 14 minutes. Now, 4 minutes may not seem that big, but in football, 4 minutes is a lot of time to possess a football. So, um, when stuff like that happens and you can't sustain drives in the second half, that's a problem. Defense is going to get tired. They carried you the whole first half. They're going to get tired. I mean, the first half, we didn't let the Vikings cross the 50 more than once. so to say that defense sold, no, your offense sold because your offense couldn't get anything going in the second half, couldn't sustain a drive, couldn't keep the ball. So, I mean, how can you put that on the defense? The defense but this has been the whole season, right? Like this has been the thing of the whole season where defense performs amazing. And then next thing you know, the offense can't do anything to help them out.
I had to get that in there. I think I saw it flash through. Of course, I knew Justin was going to come. He says defense was trash in the second half.
Yeah, when your offense can't sustain drives, I mean, your defense is going to look really bad. Like that's just what's going to happen. And we had no business even trying to win that game anyway. So I really don't care if our defense was trash in the second half. I don't care if our offense was trash in the second half. I was more upset that we was up 33-0 in the first half. John, what did I tell you? I told you y'all need to have this over with by the end of the first half. We don't need no hope. Our team didn't need any hope. Just have it over in the first half. So that way we can
Oh,
just get on with the rest of our day. Don't have to sit here and watch the second half of a football game and just go about our business. But no, y'all had to come out and stink it up for a half and then gave all Colts fans all this hope. Had me over here conflicted. I'm pissed off. I'm happy at the same time. I don't even know how that works. But and then with the potential of losing a top 5 pick. I mean, well, we were at 6, but if we had won that game, we would have dropped to like 14 or something. So
yeah, it's crazy.
there was no reason for us to even try to attempt to win that game. I don't care if we still have playoff aspirations because our division sucks. We didn't need to win that game.
John, we can't hear you if you're talking. You're on mute. There you go.
No, and I said, listen, Chris, it's going to be a 1-score game. It's not, and one thing less so than it seems like you should be. If you've watched every Vikings game, this is just sort of like, it's like you're practicing holding your breath, and every few times you tack on a couple seconds to that time, and you're like, yeah, I'm getting a little better. That's like the Vikings in these comeback wacko scenarios where it's just like, oh, like, yeah, we could probably do 33 if we practice a little bit. Like, this is just kind of another step up in the just insane finishes that they're able to pull out. So it was shocking, and then it was an NFL record, but like every game has just been cardiac arrest, So it's just kind of a cherry on top at this point. But I mean, just an insane tale of two halves, really. The difference between the first and second was just crazy.
And Thuggin Cousins did his thing.
You put your necklace on?
Brought out a chain for Thuggin Cousins.
Oh my gosh.
He did his thing. Comeback victory.
I think John froze, but we can still hear him for a little bit. I'm sure he'll probably jump right back in. Oh my gosh. I'll say this. No one should really be shocked by that if you were paying attention. If you were paying attention, you would know that Parks Frazier got extremely conservative down the stretch of that game with the play calling. A lot of that, I think, was predicated on them losing Jonathan Taylor and them trying to run the ball in the same ways of plays that would be called for Jonathan Taylor. We saw Zach Moss, which I don't even know why Zach Moss had 24 attempts for 81 yards. That was one thing. And to the point you were making, this offense at one point didn't score for 5 drives. They had 5 straight drives of 3 and outs. They had 45 yards of offense. They were 1 for 8 at one point on third downs. It was just bad football there. And to ask this defense to continue to go back on the field after you're doing all that, it's ludicrous to in my opinion, to expect so much of your defense. They got to score the only points of the game, and they got to keep the game too. What?
Hey, Meg. So I want to read this out because I understand what Justin is saying, that our second half defense was trash. But let's listen to our offensive possessions. Right. This is the start of the third quarter. Punt, field goal, punt, fumble, downs, punt, end of half. And you want your defense to keep up that same momentum they had in the first half? When the first half, our offense, field goal, touchdown, field goal, punt, field goal. We punted 1 time in the first half. 1 time in the first half. We punted 5 times in the second half. Your defense isn't going to be able to keep up that momentum when you're punting like that on offense. It's just not going to happen. So I can't solely put that on defense. I can't.
Yeah, it was a wild game. So I mean, we'll probably spend this entire show talking about it, so we won't. But the crazy thing is, that wasn't the wildest thing that happened this weekend. It literally wasn't, which is crazy to me that wasn't the wildest thing that happened this weekend. Let's roll through these games. So next up, we're going to talk about Dolphins Bills, which is a really good game. It was a snow game, which I think a lot of us love to watch these snow games. Particularly, I think I've seen a couple in Buffalo. So Nick, I want to get your thoughts on the Dolphins game and how, and I think a lot of what's been in question the last several weeks is the play of Josh Allen. So what did you think? What did you see differently in this game that you thought, okay, hey, maybe we finally put together better football down the stretch for a potential playoff run?
Yeah, I mean, this was an awesome game. It really was. I mean, we didn't get the snow until the fourth quarter, and it felt like kind of like a magical type feel, how like everybody wanted it, and then it came like right when we needed to like kind of freeze the Dolphins in the worst way, you know. Even on the Fins, they made a lot of good plays. They made a lot of good plays, even in the snow. Tua really impressed me. But with Josh, I think that ever since that Chiefs game, he hasn't had like one of those 300-yard games with like 4 touchdowns, no picks, like he did on Saturday night. And we were all like, you know, we got accustomed to that. And I was also accustomed to that. So when you for like 215, and I'm like, it's weird, but we're still winning the games. And it's like, you know, he had his like, you know, the big 2 interceptions and the one to lose the game against Minnesota. That's where kind of like the breaking point was with, you know, the media was kind of getting on him. Like, you're throwing a lot of interceptions. You have the most in the league. And then I think that ever since that Vikings game, he's only thrown 1. So, I mean, I think that it's been him trying to like trust himself not to throw into bad windows anymore. And then that is, you know, the result is he's not throwing for as many yards because he doesn't want to make as many mistakes. And he kind of wants to let the defense do its thing and then like kind of just manage the game. But I think in this game, it was necessary for him to go and get over a 300-yard type of game, get over 70 yards rushing, because we were down 8 points with 4 minutes to go in the game or 5 minutes to go in the game, and we needed him, and he knew that we needed him. And I think that in that situation, you know, elbow aside, snow aside, he was kind of just going to be that guy for us, and that's what he did. I mean, that's what I don't want to say Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, MVP winning quarterbacks do, because he hasn't done either of those things. But if he wants to do those things, you can tell that he will, because he has that, you know, he has that physicalness about him and that mentalness about him as well. So I think that we kind of saw him put it all together in this game. Finally, probably the first game since Kansas City where he's put it all together, and he was able to just will us. I mean, that last drive in the snow was really impressive with how like, yeah, I think he made 3 third and short completions, one to Davis, one to McKenzie, one to Diggs, and yeah, it was a good game. The ending was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I would say that I was actually surprised at how well the Dolphins particularly kept up with you guys. At one point, you know, I flicked on the game and it was like a back and forth like score. I mean, it was just, hey, let's see who can do that. And to be honest with you, I thought that the cold would deter the Dolphins a lot more than it did. They almost seemed unfazed by it at times, which kudos to them. They were figuring it out as well. I think, you know, it lends itself probably to that conversation we had a couple weeks ago about, you know, Tua versus Herbert. And obviously we lean towards the side of Herbert, but it was a really good game from Tua. Very good game from him. So I think the Dolphins should have nothing, you know, to be sad about from that game. Like, it was, at the end I picked Buffalo because it was a snow game. So yeah, I mean, I think that it was a really good game to watch. It was probably one of the more enjoyable, like, truly competitive games. And it was probably honestly one of the more calmer games of the weekend, even though I felt like it was necessary for us to talk about it because it was such a good matchup.
It was also a thing like Mostert ran for like over 130 yards. He really, I mean, he just, you know, shredded us on running the ball. And as I have been saying all week, I think that kind of like narrative of they can't play in the cold, even though they lost the game, they kind of put that to rest. I think that in this home stretch, they get to go back to Miami now for this Green Bay game, and they've been on the road for a little bit here against some tough games. Yeah, they had San Francisco, they had us. So I think that they're going to go back to Miami now, probably win that Green Bay game, and then kind of they'll sneak into the playoffs as a wild card spot. And you're not going to want to play them in the playoffs because they can play in the cold.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about Chiefs-Texans. So this one was also an interesting game. Chris is already smiling. Chris, what were your thoughts in watching this game? Because let's start with the fact that the Texans were running this dual QB offense.
They've been doing that for they did it last week against the Dallas Cowboys too. Yeah,
they have been doing it for a couple of weeks. What are your thoughts about this? Because and shameless plug, I know that Louis Stewart, who's one of our Texans writers, wrote an article about it today about this dual quarterback approach, and it's a little bit of it's a little different than than most teams are going to do in the NFL. You usually see this in like college, but I want to know what were your thoughts in watching the Texans compete in this game against the Chiefs?
I mean, I don't really have thoughts on it, just because I've told people for the past few weeks, look out for the Jaguars, look out for the Texans, just because. Well, the Jaguars, they have a chance to make the playoffs and actually win the division, but like the Texans and all these other teams that are, low on the totem pole, at this point, they're just looking to play spoiler. They have nothing to play for, besides that, draft position. So they're just looking to play spoiler. And with the Texans, they're 1-12-1. So like they're not going to lose that number one pick unless, they just go on a run, which I don't see that happening. But they're still looking to play spoiler with some of these playoff teams where their positioning in the playoffs matters, because it depends on your first round matchup, or if you get a first round bye, stuff like that. Because right now, with the Chiefs, the door is still open for them to get that first round bye, depending on if they win out and if Buffalo loses at least one game down the stretch. So with the Texans, it's really like, let's play spoiler. And not only that, but the AFC South plays the the AFC West really well. Like that's just historical. And I mean, even now, no matter how bad we are, we play them really well. So I don't really have much to say about. I didn't have really much thoughts about it. It's kind of like I saw it coming. Like they would have been a tough matchup. And their defense isn't bad, even without some of those key players on defense. Their defense still isn't bad. They still have Jalen Petrie. They still have some rookies that just fly around. So I wasn't surprised. I would have been shocked if they won, but I knew they would have been competitive against the Chiefs. Yeah.
I mean, I will say this. I wouldn't have been completely shocked. As a lot of people know, Patrick Mahomes has a losing record against the AFC South. For whatever reason, that is his toughest division. And the Texans, I mean, they were handing it to the Chiefs for much of that game in terms of keeping up with them. I think, unfortunately, we saw down the stretch that, Davis Mills is going to do Davis Mills things. But I brought this up for a reason that the Chiefs, won their division, which, this is the 7th time in a row they've won their division. Holy cow. And now, hey, obviously they're going to, likely go to the playoffs here. And I think they might have clinched a playoff berth with that division win. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But I thought it was very, very interesting that the Texans have taken 2 teams in back-to-back weeks, like down to the wire. And it feels like if they can just put things together next season down the stretch, I mean, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. They're giving teams a little bit of hell, even at 1-12-1. So it's worth the mention. Let's hop into this next one. I want to get your thoughts on this one. So this is Lions Jets. So those of you who are watching, we'd love to get your thoughts on this too. What do you think about this Lions team? They've gone from 1-6 to 7-7. Holy cow. I think we got John back. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I just restarted my whole computer. I don't know what happened.
It's okay.
Continue.
John was like messaging me. He's like, "Oh no, I'm getting upset. I can't get this." All right, so we just hopped on and talked about Lions and Jets, and so I just made a comment like, "Hey, if you're watching, if you're listening, like, drop a comment down. What do you think about this Lions team? This is a team that is playing inspired football." And so I want to ask John, since you just hopped back on, like, obviously we know the Lions believe in Dan Campbell, but what is it that they're doing differently that has got them now on this pretty impressive win streak to get to 500?
So there were a couple of early season like game management kind of blunders that led to a few of those losses. There were a lot of close game losses. They were competitive with a lot of really good teams. And the only team to whom they lost on this stretch is the Bills, and they played them tight. So it's really, I think they've sort of ironed out, not that they haven't had calls that shouldn't have worked, like the fake punt on their own 27 against my Vikings. So luck might have turned a little bit as well for him, but no, they're playing so hard. I think they're really well coached. They're building that team the right way. Jared Goff has been put in positions to succeed consistently. They're not asking him to do too much. He's got a lot of weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown is really underrated, frankly. Probably the best slot receiver in the league this year with Cooper Kupp missing so much time and how much time he spends on the inside. And they're just playing really, really hard. They're a well-coached football team. I think they have a really strong culture that they're only building on. Jameson Williams just got back, and that's just another weapon into the fold. Mm-hmm. And they've got a lot of young guys playing really well. On the edge, they've got Aiden Hutchinson, Charles Harris, James Houston, kid out of Jackson State. And, they're just hitting on all their draft picks. They're hitting on these little one-year free agency deals they made in the offseason. And top to bottom, it seems like they're kind of figuring it out. I don't know if the NFC juggernauts should really be scared of the Lions yet, but it doesn't look like a train that's gonna stop moving. I think they're gonna be even better next year and probably even better the next. But it's a really young roster, and I'd be happy as a Detroit Lions fan right now.
Well, yeah. You mentioned St. Brown is the best slot receiver. They have two because they also have Penei Sewell. So.
Hey, Penei Sewell can do everything. John. Go off in motion and everything.
Yeah.
Nick, I want to ask you, John touched on a little bit about Jared Goff. Do you think Jared Goff has done enough to warrant being the Lions quarterback going forward? Because there's been a lot of conversation about, is Jared Goff the guy? Do the Lions need to draft a quarterback? What are your thoughts on what you've seen from Jared Goff so far this season?
Yeah, I think that the answer to that question is yes, just because, what I've heard from Dan Campbell, he completely trusts him. He said things like, why would you not want him to be your guy going forward, and I've thought about it, and I'm like, honestly, like the way that they have him set up with all these weapons, there's no reason why not. You would want to, he's bought into that culture. And, the first year he was in Detroit, everyone was like, really? Like, there's no way he's going to be, moving forward there in Detroit. And now all of a sudden it looks like, he's thrown for multiple 300-yard games, 3 TDs, hasn't made a lot of mistakes. He's playing really well on that 4th and inches play, made a great play, finding the backup tight end for Detroit, getting the touchdown, winning the game. And I've been really impressed with his play. Obviously, you still see some of the Jared Goff plays late in games, notably the Bills game on Thanksgiving, where they had to take the field goal and then to tie the game, and then we were able to finish it. They shouldn't have been throwing the ball there. He made a bad throw out of bounds. That'll happen with him. He's not a star by any means, but I definitely think that the main thing that GMs are scared of is the unknown with your quarterback position. And I think that when you know that you have what you have and it's not bad, you kind of move forward with it. It's almost like the thing that San Francisco's done with Jimmy. They kind of know, while they did draft Trey Lance, it's like, why is Jimmy still there then? Because he's not that bad, and you are in the NFC Championship with him, and you have that opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, and you've been there already. So I think that Jared Goff is somebody who you keep around and build around, but he's not a guy that you're going to build the whole team around. Maybe you build it around, the defense or another part of the team, but they're scoring points, and the GM doesn't want to go away from him and then have to draft somebody that they don't really know. The unknown is very scary for some of these GMs. So yeah, I definitely think that Goff's done a really good job this year. And he's quarterbacking a team that's won 6 out of the last 7 games. So I definitely think that he should be the guy going forward.
And I want to add to that a little bit, because I do agree with Nick on with Jared Goff being the quarterback for them going forward, because right now as it stands, I think Jared Goff is like 8th in passing yards. He has 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He hasn't been playing bad. They've put weapons around him. DJ Shark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you have not Garrett Wilson. What's the other one? Jameson Williams. So they've put a lot of weapons around him, and you still got Swift in the backfield. And they protect him, they keep him upright, and they've been able to win games with them. You don't really lean on him as much because he's not that quarterback where it's like go back and throw the ball 40, 50 times. That's not what he's going to do, and he's not going to win you games like that. But as of right now, especially going into this draft, which they have the Rams pick, they could also not be high on a lot of these quarterbacks coming out and know that probably the Texans are going to take Bryce Young, and they may not be high on CJ Stroud. So with that, you go with the known. You go with Jared Goff because he's been able to win you games, and everybody's bought into that Lions system and Dan Campbell, and not to mention, I don't want to forget to mention is their offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Like he's been a godsend for them after they got rid of Anthony Lynn. Like their points per game have gone up, and the offense just looks a lot more fluid with Ben Johnson, calling the shots at offensive coordinator. So, I think they're in a good position right now, and you continue to draft well. You have right now, I think either like the 4th or 5th overall pick, so you can go to the defensive side of the ball with that, because that was the side of the ball that was struggling early on, and I mean still kind of struggles here and there, but you can shore up your defense. You can add another weapon for them, or whatever. But I think they're in a good position as a franchise right now, better than they've been in the past. Way better.
Well,
they finally have some continuity going on right now. Like that's I feel like the Lions have had so much chaos for the last couple of seasons, and I feel like Dan Campbell's been the solid foundation they needed, and they had a really solid draft too. They put some belief around that team. The Lions, I mean, I would say this: their fans are buying into what they're selling as well, because they've been talking about this since the offseason about having faith in this Lions team. And I think the way they started, they kind of knew that was coming, but fans have been talking about, hey, we've got some pieces. Hey, we can get the most out of this team. We just have to believe, in ourselves. And I think the Lions players themselves have started to, again, feeding into what Dan Campbell is selling. They're starting to believe in themselves. I remember I was watching Hard Knocks, and there was a quote, I think it was from Williams, and he was in the huddle, and he's like, it's big dog season, basically. And he's like, if you're a puppy, like get off the porch, sort of thing. But you could just hear that fire in his voice that he was like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of being a bad football team. And I think that they all, like, everyone's buying into that. So the Lions are playing, again, inspired football and believable football at that. So I would love to see them continue, that story this season and into next season. Like, I've been seeing memes all over social media, not the same old Lions and things like that. And I think fans are starting, fans of other teams are starting to take notice too. So it's good for them. John, were you about to say something?
Restore the roar. That's what they've been saying.
Restore the roar. Oh,
yeah.
I hadn't heard that, but okay.
Lions.
Yeah.
Just real quick on the Jared Goff situation as well. I think they feel like they're in a great spot just from a flexibility standpoint as well, because they're not even really on the hook too bad. These last 2 years of that Jared Goff deal, there's actually an opt-out clause that kicks in this offseason, to the effect of which that dead cap hit, it's only going to be $10 million a season for those next 2 seasons if they do choose to trade or cut Jared Goff. So they could draft somebody, he wins the job, they have some flexibility to move off of Goff without too much cap penalty. It'd still be 25, for example, if they would have tried to move him earlier this season or before. I think it would be June 1st, or it might be right as soon as the league year turns over. But they could get off of Goff pretty easily as well if they get a little, a better option through free agency or the draft.
Yeah, that's what makes it so tough, though, because you have an option to do that, and then Goff's maybe like, oh, they're not all in on me, and then it's like it's such a feel thing and like a culture type thing. Like all of a sudden, all the players are like, why did we draft a quarterback? We love our quarterback. But yeah, at the same time, it might be a better option than this guy that you just drafted might be a superstar, while the guy we have right now is good, not great. So It's such a tough thing to do in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll be curious to see what the Lions do. All right, so AFC South has been in a lot of games. So Chris, you're gonna have to do a lot of talking today too. Let's talk about Cowboys Jaguars. So shameless plug for StadiumRant.com. our guy Kev, who's on our Indie Intercept podcast, and he's a contributing writer for us. Kev wrote a really flawless article on the Jaguars offense and the fact that it has arrived. And you saw that in this game. I'm not even gonna lie. I did pick the Jaguars in this game as an upset pick for the week, but when it was not looking good early on, I was like, ooh, ooh, 20. I think it was 21-7 for much of that game, and then some things started to shift. But Chris, I want to ask you, like, what? So obviously, we've been hearing all this talk about Trevor Lawrence from the last several weeks. Several Jags fans have said, okay, like, hey, he is a generational talent. That's a direct quote from several folks. What are you seeing differently out of Trevor Lawrence that like made the difference in this game for them to be able to have a shot to win it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still not of the mindset that Trevor Lawrence is a generational quarterback. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. I just don't see it as him being generational. And I mean, I think we throw around generational way too much because everybody's not a generational quarterback. Because like, if we see it all the time, you're not generational. So I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL, and I personally think that he's starting to figure it out. The hiring of Doug Peterson was a godsend for him to move off of Urban Meyer, especially. But Doug Peterson was the right call for them. If you remember Carson Wentz, when with the Eagles and everything, especially his second year when they made the Super Bowl, and how Carson Wentz was playing that season, and his so I agree with that. And even this offseason, when the Jaguars were just spending money, they were just spending money left and right, and everybody was like, "Oh, you overpaid for Christian Kirk, you overpaid for this, you overpaid for that." I was of the mindset, if they start winning games, nobody's going to care how much they were paid. And also, people like to throw, "Oh, you overpaid," before they even see the structure of the contract. Because just because this number looks like this, that doesn't mean the contract is structured for the player to actually get to that number, or even that they're guaranteed all of that money. So I was of the mindset that they were building this team just like they built the Eagles for Carson Wentz. You have two receivers in Marvin Jones and Zay Jones, who are both about 6'2", 200 and something pounds. If you remember, they're right there in line with Alshon Jeffries. You have a receiver like Christian Kirk, who's right in line with like Nelson Aguilar. And I would say Christian Kirk has better hands, but they're right in line as the same type of wide receiver, the deep threat, running the seams and stuff like that, going downfield. Alshon Jeffries was more like the possession receiver, which you see with the Zay Jones and the Marvin Jones. Then you have your athletic tight end and Evan Ingram, who looks like he's starting to figure it out a lot more as well. So I think with Trevor Lawrence, it's just one of those things where now he has a lot of confidence. He's gaining more confidence in the league that he's able to make some of these NFL throws, that his receivers are going to catch the ball. He's gaining more confidence in them as well. And we're seeing the fruits of that. Like we're seeing the fruits like in real time being produced. And I think, I mean, for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence could really run that division for the next 10 years. It's just a matter of how the Colts draft, if we can get our franchise guy in there, how the Texans draft. I mean, to be honest, I could see the AFC South being like a really competitive division in the next few years, like a really competitive division in the next few years, just because if the Colts, they tend to draft well, no matter who's really our GM, like we tend to draft pretty well. As far as the Texans with their new front office, they've been drafting talent. Now it's a matter of getting their quarterback in there and maybe trying to protect them. So in the next few years, I mean, AFC South could really be on the map. A lot of people call us call us soft, call us one of the worst divisions, stuff like that. But even this year, you've seen that the AFC South has been competitive in just about every game. No matter how bad the team is, they've been competitive. So,
yeah, I would say, speaking of competitive, this Cowboys-Jaguars game, very much a back and forth. And I thought that the Jaguars were dead in the water when Trevor Lawrence fumbled. I think he fumbled with like a minute and 30-ish left, somewhere in that range.
I thought it was over.
I definitely thought to myself, I was like, well, there goes the game. but I was watching a clip earlier, and they're interviewing several Jags players. They're like, "Hey, we never flinched, we never gave up. Like we kept our minds in there." So I don't know if you have the clip or not, Chris, but Jaguars were done, so to speak. Cowboys are essentially trying to move the. I don't think I've ever seen. Well, let me take that back. I don't think I've ever seen something like that happen in that that quickly. I've seen wild touchdowns like that, but not to in that quickly and then to end a game. So that's. Uh-oh. Did we get a comment? It says, "Please get Jordan Addison with my USC native Michael Pittman." Shout out to my man DeForest Buckner. That's good. That's good.
And I do want to say that's not Dak's fault on that interception. I don't care what nobody says. That wasn't on Dak. That ball was a good. I mean, even though Dak was like throwing like weird, he still hit the receiver right where, like right here. You got to catch that. You can't let that bounce off your shoulder pad or anything. He threw it low so that way he couldn't get hit by the DB. And it just so happens that Noah Brown just couldn't catch right there. And yeah.
There's a comment, if you don't see if you can bring it up. I think it's from Kevin. He's an Eagles fan. Yes, he says if Dallas wants to go anywhere, they need to move on from Mike McCarthy as head coach. I mean, I think you would want, I think you'd want Dallas to keep Mike McCarthy if you're an Eagles fan. Just saying, Kevin. But this was a very, very good game, and I think that it showed that one, the Jaguars are now fit, and two, the Titans are in trouble. They are really in trouble. So let's move to the next one. And Nick and John, I want to get your thoughts on this one as well, because I think Chris actually did a really, really nice.
But just real quick, though.
Yeah, go for it.
What that showed about the Dallas Cowboys is that even though you'll see later, I'm literally picking them to beat Philly this week, but it still shows me that they're the same old Cowboys. And when they need to rise to the occasion, they shrink. And that's a drive in overtime where against Jacksonville, where you scored 34 points against and had so much success early on. And all you have to do is score. And they throw a pick six. And even though it wasn't Dak's fault, Chris, you're completely right. Noah Brown, you got to make the catch, because at the end of the day, in the playoffs, when you guys lose and it's not Dak's fault, nobody cares if it's not Dak's fault. It's still out, and it was another failed season. And even though I still think they can completely rebound, quote unquote, this week, and they're a good team, they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to be in there. But just what I've seen, and this just proves that they shrink when they need to rise. That's what I see.
Oh, who would you rather have, Mike McCarthy or Josh McFraud, a.k.a. Josh McDaniels?
Hey, all I can say is we dodged that bullet, man. I'm so happy about 2018.
Every time this gets brought up, I'm like, ooh.
McCarthy knows how to fill out a staff, though.
Definitely McCarthy.
That's true. That's true.
And he knows how to let those guys call the plays, too.
Ooh, shots fired. Shots fired. All right, let's talk about Titans-Chargers. So this was a wild game, too. Very, very wild game. At one point, Ryan Tannehill gets hurt. He is carted off the field. It basically goes and gets bandaged up, comes back in. He's playing, but he's pretty much immobile for much of this game. But they were able to go back and forth with the Chargers. And John, I want to get your thoughts. I think it was the game-winning drive from the Chargers in particular that I'm thinking about. That Justin Herbert threw a dart. I mean, first of all, the throw should have there's 10 times out of 10 you don't make that throw. Like, you just throw it away. But he literally threw a dart down the field. And I can't remember the wide receiver who caught it. So my mind is blanking on it. Maybe it was
one to Mike Williams on the sideline.
Yes, there you go. I was just about to say Mike Williams.
That's what separates Herbert from Tua.
Yes, that does. That throw right there made me think about the Herbert-Tua conversation we had, a couple weeks ago about who was better. And in my mind, I was thinking, I'm like, there's no way he's about to throw this. There's no way he's about to throw this. He's about to throw this away. And it zips out before I even knew about it. So, John, what did you see, not only from the game, but on that throw in particular that said, hey, this validates our conversation we had a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. No, I think that's what separates Herbert from a lot of the quarterbacks in the NFL is even the gall to make that throw and the confidence to make that throw, because he knows he can get it there. And I think when I think of guys like that, I do agree with your point earlier, Chris, to, Trevor Lawrence probably not necessarily a generational talent. I think he could be elite, but it's been the same generation for a few years now. We've already had Mahomes, same generation. But when I think of guys who can make those kind of throws, like it's stuff like that he'll just uncork and rope like that with that confidence, and obviously he's got the ability to get it there. But you see guys like him and Lawrence hitting like opposite hash hole shots, stuff that other quarterbacks would not even think about doing if their feet were in that spot on the field, and that's where they were trying to get the ball to. So that's what really separates him from those. We could use whatever trope you like, system quarterbacks.
Trevor.
Yeah, that's correct, Trev.
Yeah, Trevor. Yeah.
But it's what those extra things that allows you to do. It's like having a Randy Moss. When he's covered, he's still open. When you have Herbert, your receivers are kind of just always open, right?
Always open, yeah.
Because he can get it to those spots that only they can get to it. So, I think it shows a lot about Herbert. You box score watch, and it's 300 something, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, but he was the catalyst for them winning that game down the stretch, and Brandon Staley schemed him up again this week on the defensive side of the ball to keep him in the game. So enough from both sides of the ball, and the Chargers might squeak out a few more wins. They're looking a little dangerous.
They might. I would say that when I watched this game, shameless plug, I wrote this article a few weeks ago about the Titans being frauds. And I know that's a lot of nasty work coming from a Colts fan. But
we're not frauds. We just suck. Like,
that's the difference. Like, we just know we're terrible. That's different. But when I watched this game, I thought that the Titans are in trouble for the simple fact that, like, now they've gone from 7-3 to now 7-7. They're potentially going to lose the division. Oh yeah, this comment says every new young QB went from being the new Mahomes to the new Josh Allen. How long till these young guys are the new Justin Herbert? Interesting. That's a good question. I like that. I like that a lot.
Or Burrow.
Yeah, or Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
yes,
Burrow.
I've heard that a lot. But when I watched this game, I thought for sure the Titans are in trouble. They've been beat up on defense. They have not been able to get enough out of their wide receivers at times. I feel like Chig Okonkwo was that's the most consistent I've seen. Derrick Henry, had some uncharacteristic, runs here and there, and I think he fumbled at some point as well during that game. The Titans definitely have lost some sort of identity somewhere down the stretch here. I think they've just lost their fire that they had, and really I think it went with that Eagles game. Like, AJ Brown, the destroyer of dreams, and just took all the Titans offense with him. Hey, it is what it is. But I want to point out
kind of a relevant thing from that game. I just want to point out it was irrelevant when all said and done. But the Titans had one of the most incredible interceptions in the end zone.
Yes, that's what I was getting to. Yes.
I've never seen that.
And back to his man, the wherewithal to get to the ball, pinpoint your toes, and boom, there's an interception there. That, first of all, if you ever watch Roger McCreary at Auburn, then you know what kind of player that you're getting. I think he had a really rough, rookie part half of the rookie season, but now the NFL is speeding up for him. Like, that's the type of heads up play that Roger McCreary has made, I don't know, over and over again for Auburn. So
yeah, the commentator said, "Oh, it was deflected and then picked." I was like, "No, it wasn't deflected."
No, it was not. It definitely was not.
I love when these commentators have no idea how insane. Like, they just saw something incredible and they don't even know what happened. They're like, "It was deflected."
They don't know. They don't know.
Well, before we move on to anything else, I just want to bring this up. They asked who's the best quarterback from that 2020 draft class. Ooh. Me personally, I would have to go Herbert. I know some people will go Joe Burrow, but they surrounded Burrow with a ton of talent at the wide receiver position, from T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. They still got Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon out of the backfield can catch the ball. So, he has a ton of talent on that roster. And I would say like his talent, like his weapons are better than what Herbert has over there in Sandy or in LA. What Herbert's been able to do with that, I gotta go Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking. I was trying to make sure that I had all the quarterbacks from that draft. I mean, yeah, you got to go Herbert. I mean, the quarterbacks from that draft. Jacob Eason was one of them. Jake Fromm. I mean, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I mean
Jordan
Jalen.
Love.
And
I mean,
Jalen's
Jalen
good.
is this season.
He's
Jalen is
good.
MVP. I think, in my opinion, Jalen's MVP on track for that. But as far as best quarterback out of there, I mean, I think it could go either Herbert or if you like, I've just completely lost my train of thought. Forgot what I was going to say, but Herbert is definitely on the list. There we go.
Was Tua in that draft class?
Yes. Yeah. Joe Burrow. That's the other guy I was thinking of. Sorry, my brain completely.
Yeah, Tua was in that
Herbert
class.
has good weapons. It's just that everyone's always hurt. That's the problem.
Well, that's true too.
He's got Mike Williams. He's got Keenan Allen. He's got Josh Palmer. But as I think I said it last week or the week before, he kind of made Josh Palmer who he is. Like, we wouldn't know who he is if there was no Justin Herbert. And Burrow, yeah, I mean, he's got some of the best weapons in the league. I mean, obviously his O-line's been so bad, but he's dealt with that well. But Herbert, with the injuries, it's been really impressive the way he's still been able to put up numbers. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's roll.
When you look back at that class, I was just gonna say when you look back at that class, that class was really crazy when it came back to the quarterback position. Like that class, that draft class is crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking at these names now and I'm like, holy cow, that's a lot. Which is all it makes me all the more upset that we didn't get one in 2020. Let me just carry on before I get upset all over again. All right, so we got one more game to talk about, and this is probably the game of the year as far in the way that it ended. So if you were watching this game live, Patriots Raiders was going back and forth. First of all, the game was really disgusting. I'm not even gonna lie to you. There was a clear as day touchdown that should not have been called. His foot was clearly out. The Raiders were playing really well. Initially, they were taking it to the Patriots. Patriots kind of climbed back in, but that wasn't even the most disgusting part of the whole game. What I thought was an overtime game ends up being a Raiders walk-off win. And Chris, if you can play this clip, we've got it.
What a low light.
Hey, Chandler Jones did him like my bills do my paycheck.
Oh, man.
So let me say this. I have to give a shout out to Jacoby Myers because he did own his mistake. They're like, that's really tough to do. But after the game, they're asking questions. Oh gosh, how long until Jacoby Myers is announced on the IR for an injury? Bill Belichick is so petty, I wouldn't put it past him. Oh my Lord.
I would literally give like a toe to have followed Bill Belichick around for the ensuing 24 hours after that. Like, just like the least crucial toe. Like, I'd say a pinky toe, but I think those are actually pretty important for balance. But there's a lot I would do to hear what Belichick was saying to his.
I don't know if you've ever seen Billy Madison, but it reminded me of that scene when he didn't want to go to school, and then like the maid was like, "Oh, you gotta go," and he's like, "I swear to God, I can't go to school. I'm sick." I feel like that's what Jacoby Myers is doing. I'm not going. I'm not going anywhere.
I mean,
not going to the film room.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, oh gosh, Trevor said that boy put Mac Jones into the ground.
How do you face your team after that, Mac?
Oh my gosh. Well,
how do you huddle them up after that?
What was probably worse, and we didn't get the angle on it, but there was a picture floating around. It says what Bill Belichick said about not going for the Hail Mary killed me. Can't throw it that far. A simple man. Oh my gosh, these comments are great. Please keep these coming. We appreciate these. But what was even worse about this happened, first thing is, I'll say this, that's what was my first thought, was Jacoby Myers did own up to it. He was like, hey, I was trying to make a play. I should have just, either kneeled it out or whatever else, right? Okay, cool, fine. What was even worse was Mac Jones, after he got stiff-armed to hell, and Chandler Jones is running down the field, there's an angle that they have of Mac Jones literally sitting in the field. His legs are crossed, he's sitting like crisscross applesauce, and he's just like, he just sat there for at least a smooth 5 to 10 seconds before he even popped up, and he was like, okay, I have to go get my life together. Like you knew that he's probably like saying every word but sunshine in his head. He's got to.
His head probably hurt.
Yeah.
Like
I've
you
seen
get stiff
so
arm
many-
that hard into the ground, your head probably hurts.
At all,
I've seen so
But I got
many
a question.
kickers and punters give a way better effort to save a touchdown than that. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta sell out Mac. Come on, dude.
So I got a question though. Like
What's
Jacoby
your question?
Myers said he was trying to make a play, right?
Yeah.
What play were you thinking about making when you threw the ball back to your quarterback who was at the 50-yard line?
He thought he could throw it forward again.
I think he really thought that Mac could like get it down the field or throw it forward to someone else, because he said in his post-game interview, he was like, I thought Mac was open, but didn't realize when he threw it that it was not to Mac. It was just in the general area of Mac and got like picked off.
Well, even if you first of all, if you thought Mac Jones could still throw the ball after the ball had went well past the line of scrimmage, like all the way downfield to like the 20, and you thought Mac could throw the ball back forward, like do we not know football rules no more? Like
if you didn't,
if you're freaking out, just go to the ground, honestly.
It's 24 to 24. Like, wasn't that the score? Like,
yes,
going to overtime.
You're freaking out. Don't do that.
They even asked the center, and I can't remember who it was. The name is escaping me at the moment. But they asked the center, like, "Hey, did you guys not know? Like, you know, it was a tie game." He's like, "Hey, man, I'm just a center. You got to ask Belichick." But
it wasn't Bill's call. Bill, like that wasn't even Bill's call to do that. So why would you ask Bill Belichick that?
I just don't know why you just didn't kneel it out. Like you could have literally kneeled it out and gone to play for overtime. Like you just battled your way back. Like I don't understand. I don't.
And also enough
Michael
blame
said,
isn't being given.
Just sit down.
Enough blame isn't being given to Ramondre Stevenson as well, because like even that, just go down. You're getting tackled. Why are you throwing the ball back? Like you're getting tackled, just go down. It's 24-20. I understand, you know, just keep going or whatever, but it's 24-24, 0 seconds on the clock. Let's just go into OT and let's handle it there.
These guys in this new generation are always trying to get on SportsCenter all the time.
They always want to be on ESPN top 10.
I'm going to be a hero because, like, I started that play. Like, no, yeah.
What do they call it? The social media guys?
And now
it wasn't until Ramondre started breaking a few tackles that I feel like Jacoby Myers was like, "Oh shit, we're doing this. We're doing
I guess we're gonna just do it. Let's just do it then."
Yeah, he's like, "We're going for it."
It is maybe that explains why he was like, "Hey, I got to make a play. I got to go find. Like, I can't take care of this. Somebody else needs this ball more than me. Like, you know, hey.
not the quarterback." That's what
I'd love to get all those players. I'll get Ramondre, Jacoby, and Mac in this podcast and see if that's what they were thinking too.
They're gonna make Shaq in the fool. Shaq in the fool. That's what they're gonna make.
Yeah. Michael said Ramondre Stevenson is a social media running back. Oh my gosh!
He's a TikTok running back. That's crazy.
Oh no! But I will say this. that watching this play made me think about how thankful I am that it was the Patriots on the other side of this play, because we were the laughing stock of the league for years for the swinging gate play that happened against the Patriots that should have never happened ever in life. And so this made me forget about that play.
It brought it back full circle.
I'm saying. It made me forget about this 33 point, the 33 points that we gave up to the Vikings.
So some of my friends asked me, like, you're not embarrassed to lose like that, the 33 point, comeback or whatever? You're not embarrassed to lose like that? I was like, what was more embarrassing, the swinging gate play or this? They was like, yeah, it was definitely the swinging gate play. Exactly. Play, yes. So this ain't embarrassing to me.
I mean, it will be brought up, of course, when they start having comebacks. Oh, what was it?
It's history. It's history.
It's fine. But that swinging gate play is still the stuff of nightmares. Like, it still haunts me. And that was exactly what I thought when I saw this play. I was like, wow.
We're 4-8-1. Us losing like that isn't embarrassing. Our record is embarrassing. That's what's embarrassing. Not us losing the way we lost to the Vikings. We're 4-8-1. I don't really expect much from this team besides I expected them to come back. I was pissed, but I expected them to come back. I was just pissed to be up 33. Like, that pissed me off. But, And
finally, just like after all these, years of the Brady dominance years, the 20 years of dominance that they had, I know that they're not doing well anymore, but also they've been embarrassed a few times. Like the 47-17 loss against us in the playoffs. They've been like embarrassed like openly, and I think that's even better. You know, they're obviously not a good football team anymore, but they're also just getting like really like embarrassed, and that's kind of funny.
There's a comment that I want to read, and then we can move on. But I think Michael left it. Yes, I hope there's a 30 for 30 for some reason, like in 10 years. Oh, woo. This comment section is
from deflate gate to whatever. From deflate gate to losing in 10 seconds. I don't know.
My gosh.
So 30 for 30.
Yes.
To the worst lateral of all time.
Worst lateral of all time, yes.
18-1, all that.
Oh, man. All right, let's talk about this because we still got to get through the playoffs and rapid fire. So, playoffs, I want to read these things off to you. So, this is who's clinched a playoff berth so far. Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, Vikings, 49ers, and Cowboys. That's pretty solid. I think we kind of knew most of those folks. And the Cowboys finally make the playoffs after like 50,000 years. All right.
Wow.
Clinch a playoff berth if they win this week. The Bengals. That's solid. Here's where it gets interesting. They could clinch a playoff berth if they win their next two games. The Ravens, the Chargers, the Giants, and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers being in the playoffs is absolutely nasty work. Like, it is disgusting. The fact that they could be sub 500 and actually win their division. Like, I don't even know what to say about that. Oh, hi, Josh. All right, so here's other interesting scenarios. Clinch the playoff berth if they win out. Dolphins, Titans, Jaguars, Patriots, Commanders, and Panthers. Also some very interesting teams in there as well. It gets even more funny here, and Chris, you'll start laughing about this because this is where you'll see that we're still in it.
I know.
You need a lot of help. The Jets, the Raiders, the Browns, Steelers, the Colts, the Lions, the Seahawks, Packers, Falcons, and Saints. All of those teams are mathematically not out of the playoffs. Matter of fact, I saw the wildest stat that I've seen today, and I think it was Peter Schragg's. He actually tweeted this. He said the Colts are not mathematically out of it. They have a 0.2% of making the playoffs, which is insane to me.
Hopefully after Monday, all of that is done with. Like, hopefully after Monday, we lose to the Chargers, and there's no more talks of the Colts potentially making the playoffs.
Listen, it's already on Monday Night Football, and I feel like that is painful punishment enough for everyone.
I really can't believe we have another primetime game.
The fact that it wasn't flexed, I'm so sorry for everyone that's got to watch that. I'm so sorry. All right, so, and this is the ones that are mathematically eliminated. Broncos, Texans, the Bears, the Cardinals, and the Rams. And the Rams now have the worst record of any reigning Super Bowl champion. Any thoughts there to anyone that you heard on that list that I just named? I know I just threw out a lot, but Nick, anyone that stands out as a dark horse to look out for, someone who could make some noise in the playoffs?
I'm gonna stick with Jacksonville. You know, I think they're winning the division, and I think that right now we're like talking about them like they're really. And of course Detroit. Those two teams, but Jacksonville just like strikes me as a team that could win that first game. You know, they go somewhere and Trevor has a great game, and then they're in the divisional game all of a sudden, and it's like Jacksonville's here. You know, even if they lose that game, which they probably would next year, it's like they're a team. Like they were just in the divisional game. That's just kind of what I see. I think they're very dangerous. I think they have a great offense. And while I think I'm agreeing with all of you guys that he's not a generational talent, he's going to be really good, and he's really finding a stride. And I think that they're dangerous. You don't really want to play them. If you see Jacksonville in the playoffs, I don't know. I would be very worried. So yeah, it is Jacksonville. I think they're making the playoffs. And I think the way that we've seen Tennessee play over the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's just not been very encouraging.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think my only concern with Jacksonville is they're a little beat up on their offensive line. They just lost their left tackle, Cam Robinson, and now you've got Walker Little who's going to step in for Cam. That's really where I would give a little pause to, you know, protection-wise. Let's see what Walker can do, and of course, as effectively running the ball. So we'll see what happens there. John, same question to you, and then we'll do our rapid fire. Anyone on that list that I just named is like, hey, this is your dark horse, someone to make noise in the playoffs other than your own team?
Yeah, I like Jacksonville, but just for the sake of mentioning another team, I think a lot of people are sort of like out on Washington already. They still hold that 7 seed right now, and they've got a half game lead on Seattle and on Detroit. They're 7-6-1. So they clinch if they win out, and they'll probably get a little bit of help from those two teams, frankly, with a loss one way or the other. So I think if they sneak in, they're a well coached team, and this is I think the third year in a row under Ron Rivera that they started really slow, and then just kind of started to figure it out towards the end of the season. They've got really great weapons on the offensive side. Any of whom can click at any given time. Terry, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel has been big. They do have, when they stick to it, they have a good running game. They went away from Brian Robinson inexplicably at the end of that Giants game. But, I think they could give some teams some fits. And granted, at 7-2, they'd probably see my Vikings round one. But I don't think they're going to be an easy out for any team at this point, just because of how the defensive front plays and how well they're coached. And then they do have not necessarily with the quarterback, but just from a weapon standpoint, they have a pretty high offensive ceiling. I think if they really get rolling, start playing horizontally, get Samuel in space, get Terry McLaurin open over the middle, and let those guys work after the catch, I think they can be pretty dangerous.
Okay. All right. So I like both of those picks. The Commanders one I wasn't expecting, but I like both of those. All right, so we're going to do this very rapid fire. So this is, for those of you who are watching, this is our rapid fire pick 'em. Every week we take the picks, the games for the week, and then pick who we want to win. We're usually trying to do this hot take style off the top of the dome, and we'll see what happens here. We usually get somebody in here is going to ruffle some feathers. All right, so let's start with Thursday night. It's Jags at Jets. I think, Nick, we know that you picked Jags in that one already. So, John, who do you have in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go Jags as well. I just like the way they've been playing down the stretch and the way they've been executing into the red zone and late in games, which was sort of the issue early on this season was, hey, they've been great between the 20s. They've been great in the second and the third quarter. But it's executing down the stretch. They let a few wins slip away early on in the season. I think they've kind of corrected some of those things. I'm going to go Jags.
All right, Jags. All right, and I'm going Jags as well. Jags offense has arrived. It is here now. I do not like Zach Wilson against the Jags. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Let's keep rolling. All right, Bills at Bears. This is the slate of Saturday games for Christmas Eve. Nick, I'm coming to you. I would assume that you have your Bills here.
No, I got the Bills. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right, John. I would assume you're probably. I would think that you probably say Bills as well.
Yeah, we're going to go Bills, even down at Soldier Field.
Yeah, I'm going Bills as well. I like that Justin Fields has come on. Of course, he's trying to get better, but just not enough. Too much Bills at the end of the day. And yeah, the Bills got to play solid football down the stretch to continue their path. All right, Saints at Browns. This is an interesting matchup. John, who do you have in this one?
Saints might be my favorite to win the NFC South, and I think they roll here.
Look at Chris's face.
I think they roll here. Listen, I trust their defense more than any other individual unit in that division, and I think they could click at the right time. They're a game back on the Bucs right now. All three other teams are a game back on the Bucs right now, but Saints roll.
You know what? I did say that somebody was going to surprise us, and it's already happened now. All right, Nick, who do you have in this game?
I got Cleveland. I kind of, obviously it wasn't Lamar, but I liked what they did on defense against Baltimore's offense. And Deshaun, happy ending Watson. He's gonna start continuing to play better, and I like what he's doing.
All right. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I just call him Freak Nick, but happy ending.
Oh my goodness, too much. All right, let's go. I'm going to actually take the Browns at home for the simple fact that if this was in the Superdome, I think it might be the Saints. But that Browns defense has been playing very well. They did play very well against the Ravens. So, all right, Texans at Titans. I think that this could get very interesting. I'm actually going to start this one first. I expect the Titans to right the ship here. The Texans are just simply running out of steam in games, and I would be shocked if they were able to pull this off in Nashville. And if they do, holy goodness, yeah, Titans, you've got a lot of problems on your hand if you end up losing to these Texans. But John, who do you have in this one?
I'd love to say Texans, especially coming off that battle against KC.
Same.
But Derrick Henry just owns the
Yeah.
Texans and the Jags for that matter. You know, it's a really good coach team. I can't see him dropping this one at home when they really, really need to right the ship, as you said. Titans.
Yeah. Yep. Nick, who you got?
I did my picks like before we started this, and I have HOU written down right here, but he just kind of swayed me, and then he reminded me of King Henry. So you're right. Like I'm like envisioning the game right now, and I'm like, okay, yeah, Houston's not gonna do anything. They are completely like they had a nice 2 like Dallas, KC, cool, you're awesome, whatever. Tennessee needs to win this game, and they will.
Mm-hmm. Death taxes and Derrick Henry against the division.
Yeah, I was going to say, keep in mind, though, that Malik Willis potentially could play in this game because Ryan Tannehill is uncertain. The last time Malik played them, it was 6. I think he was 6 of 10 for 55 yards, and King Henry had 200+ on the ground. And I was in person for that, and that was complete nasty work. And if you don't think he's going to do something close to that here, I think you might be sadly mistaken, my friend.
He does that every year to Houston, though.
Yes, this is normal for them. We're getting some feedback there. There we go. All right, let's go Seahawks at Chiefs. So, Nick, who do you have here?
Yeah, Seahawks are going in the wrong direction, as John said, with Washington. They're going to slot into that 7th or 6th spot just because, you know, I said earlier in the year, Pete Carroll's like he's coaching his ass off. He's such a great coach, but they don't have enough talent at the end of the day, and the NFL's a talent league. And Kansas City at home, this is a really, really tough ask for Seattle to go in there and win this game. So I'm going to go with Kansas City to keep rolling. Obviously, they're still fighting with the Bills for that number 1 seed.
Yep. John, who do you got?
Yep, still something on the line for Kansas City at Arrowhead. I'm going KC. You'd like to see the Seahawks stick around for that 7 seed, but I think this is one of the nails into their coffin here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Chiefs as well. I think this is a really tough ask to have the Seahawks come in and win in Arrowhead. All right, Giants at Vikings. We know John is taking Vikings. We won't even ask. Nick, who do you got in this one?
All right, so then I'm going to take the Giants to I like what they're doing, even though that was a bit of a hug on that last play of the game against Washington. That was a bit of one, but you know, they're gritty. I think they're gritty, and Minnesota. It kind of reminds me of the Detroit game. It's like they're not, you know, on paper they're not all that, but you know what? I think that they have something here. So if Minnesota wins, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, I'm actually going to take the Vikings here at home. I think they get a big boost from their big comeback from against the Colts, and they keep playing really good football. Maybe KJ Osborne continues these crazy games that he had. I mean, I don't think he's going to have 10 catches for 157 yards, but hey, you know, maybe he continues his coming out party. Those of you who are watching, leave who you think is going to win these games as well in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. You've been having us rolling all show, so I want to take some more hot takes here. All right, let's keep rolling. So this is Bengals at Patriots. Interesting matchup here. Nick, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, it is interesting just because, you know, when a team, especially with the greatest coach of all time, gets embarrassed like that, he's probably like making sure that doesn't happen again. And Cincinnati had a tough start to that game. They really didn't play well in Tampa. They really didn't, but they still put up 34 points. So it kind of shows of how dominant they can be when they are clicking. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. They're still fighting with Baltimore and with the Bills and with Kansas City for that, you know, seeding. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
Oh, Ben says he's got Bengals as well. Okay. All right. John, who do you have?
Belichick's going to sleep like 12 total hours the rest of the week. And listen, I think he's going to have them schemed up. They're going to get their asses kicked so hard in practice. And I think I have a tough time picking the Patriots to lose multiple games in a row, just as kind of a general feel kind of thing. But I'm going to go Patriots here at home, coming off one of the worst things I've ever seen on television. I can't see Belichick dropping another one. Imagine just the how dejected you'd feel as a fan, how dejected you'd feel as Bill Belichick.
I'm sorry, Patriots fans. You know what? I'm actually going to go Bengals here. This Bengals defense is a lot tougher than that Raiders defense, and they struggled against the Raiders quite a bit. So, yeah, give me the Bengals here. All right, let's keep rolling. We've got quite a few to get through, so let's do these a little bit more rapid fire off the top of the dome. So let's go Lions at Panthers. John, who do you have in this one?
Lions, they've got a shot at the playoffs here still. Panthers still have a shot at the division, but the Lions are a little hotter, playing a little better football.
All right, I got Detroit. Nick, who do you have?
Detroit just continues to rule. Got them.
Yep, I have the Lions as well. They're playing good football lately, and they're on the roll. So let's keep it going. All right, Falcons at Ravens. Very interesting matchup here. I think we got another comment in there. Yep, I got Lions. So let's go. That's a good one. Thanks, Vince. All right, so Falcons at Ravens. Nick, who do you have in this one?
I think that Lamar might be back for this game, and even if he's not, I still got the Ravens. I don't think Atlanta can match the. I mean, you got like Desmond Ridder played all right. He had a really bad rookie mistake on the last play of the game, but I just don't trust him on the road, especially with a team that's fighting for the division. So yeah, I got Baltimore.
Okay, John, who do you have?
Yeah, Ravens by not enough points. It's going to be probably another ugly one.
Oh my gosh. I do have the Ravens here. I just think this is a really gross matchup for a rookie quarterback and to be on the road like that. Sorry, Desmond Ridder. All right, Commanders at 49ers. This is also could be an interesting matchup. Let's go with you, Nick. I saw you nodding your head. What are you thinking for Commanders at 49ers?
Yeah, just coming off a tough loss, I think that they'll play really well. But I mean, we've said multiple times on this show that Washington plays a lot better at home than they do on the road. And I think this is another tough ask to go into Levi and beat them. And San Francisco's the hottest NFC team, I think. So I'm going to take the 49ers.
Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Jody, Falcons fan. Okay. All right. Oh, Vince also says I got Brock Party. I got my 49ers. Brock Party is good. That's a good one. That's John's levels of dad jokes right there. John, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I won't be picking against the 49ers again until further notice.
Same. That 49ers defense is rolling right now, and so is Brock Party. And we'll go from there. All right. Eagles at Cowboys. Someone said earlier they were taking, I think, the Cowboys. Yeah, Nick, there you go. So Nick's got Cowboys and an upset, quote unquote. John, who do you have in this? This could be Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Keep that in mind. Who do you have here?
Yeah, I'm going to go Cowboys. It should be Gardner. The Eagles only need one more win to clinch the division, and it doesn't matter who it comes against. So this isn't even too much on the line necessarily where Hurts might suck it up and play. It's just that AC joint sounds like anyway. But it might not even be the throwing shoulder. I think they'll take it easy anyway. So probably no Hurts. I'm going to go Cowboys.
I'm actually going to go the Eagles. I'm going to take the Eagles here. I think that you get Gardner Minshew. He can step in and play for one game, if that's the case. Even if it's 2 games, I think you would be fine with Gardner Minshew at the helms. The boys have also looked very shaky, as you saw, against the Jaguars and even against the Colts, against the Texans. Like they've pulled out these games up until they got to the Jaguars, but they've looked very shaky, very, very shaky. So there's my pick there. Chris is like laughing. What do you want to say, Chris?
Shit every time.
Oh my gosh. I saw a 49ers fan refer to themselves as a pervert, and I haven't thought about anything else since. Holy cow. Wow. That's different. That's definitely different. Michael Phillips said, yeah, Minshew Mania, baby. Oh no. No, I'm definitely not there, but give me the Eagles for this point. All right. On that note, we're gonna keep rolling through these games. Let's go Raiders Steelers. John, who do you have in this one?
Oh, Christ. Mike Tomlin. The Raiders have been hot, but Mike Tomlin is fighting against his first losing season. I don't think he could stay alive here, getting to 7-8.
Oh yeah, such a good point. But
I also taking the Raiders.
John, you're
Are you
taking
taking the
Steelers,
Raiders?
right?
Yeah, man. Steelers.
Steelers. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
gonna take the Raiders because I just think that I think Derek Carr plays really well at the end of seasons. I don't know. This is kind of like this is his thing. Like he starts to like percolate at the end of the year.
Percolate.
I got LJ.
All right, I'm gonna go Raiders as well. Raiders are playing they've been playing fairly well towards the end of the season. So, all right, last I think 1, 2, 3, 4. So Packers at Dolphins. I actually want to tackle this one first. I'm gonna go Dolphins at home. The Packers, they played a pretty good game against the Rams, but it was the Rams. So they haven't looked. Packers haven't looked like themselves, and neither have the Rams. But the Dolphins are a much better team. Give me the Dolphins at home. Nick, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I got the Dolphins. They're coming finally, as I said, finally back home. They need these games. They need to make the playoffs because they're good. And if they didn't, that would just be such a shame. So I got the Fins. Packers have to win all 3 and get help. It's not going to happen. They're not a warm weather team. This is a terrible storm for Green Bay. This is not good.
Okay, John, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, it's a terrible schematic matchup for the Packers. They play that heavy quarters Fangio tree defense with Joe Barry. It's going to be Waddle and Hill crossers all day.
It is.
All right. Like I said, I got Dolphins here. All right, Broncos at Rams, and then I'm going to give you another one: Buccaneers at Cardinals. So let's go, Nick. So Broncos at Rams and Bucks at Cardinals. Who do you have in both of those?
Okay, I got the Rams at home. I got the Bucks on the road.
Interesting. Okay, John, who do you have?
I don't know, man.
There's a reason why I did it like that, because I was like, they're gonna be so disgusted by both of these.
Rams, and I'm gonna go Rams and Bucks as well. The Cardinals are terrible. Rams are at home, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm gonna take Rams at home and give me the Bucks over the Cardinals as well.
We need the Broncos.
Vince is still riding.
This is not with my Colts lens on. Okay, this is literally for necessary roughness. Chris is like, push the agenda, keep the lens. Like, no.
Let's ride. Let's ride.
Still riding.
That is nasty work from you, Chris. That's completely nasty work. All right, last one: Chargers at Colts. I'm not even going to ask you, Chris, because I already know what you want. Nick, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I got the Chargers in this one.
And John, I assume you have Chargers as well.
Yeah, it should be the Chargers. I mean, I think the Colts keep it close again because I think I think the locker room is going to be similar to Bill Belichick's locker room this week. I think heads may roll during the film room sessions, things like that. I could see this team playing hard as hell, but I'm gonna go Herbert and the Chargers.
This feels really gross to do, but I'm gonna take the Chargers over my Colts. The Colts and Chris, not for the reasons you think so, but the Colts need to continue to keep losing in an effort to at least get this front office to pay attention to this roster. Like, I think right now we're at a point where we're like, oh, we're still competitive, blah 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 blah. No, completely scrap it. Chris Ballard's got to go. Give me a new head coach. Give me a new OC. Give me a new GM, and go give me a quarterback. It's got to go. Mm-hmm. Carry on.
That's exactly for the reasons that I want, Meg. Like, what?
I mean,
exactly the reasons.
Yours is for the draft picks,
I mean, that's how we're going to get our quarterback, right? We draft high enough, we get our quarterback, and we get rid of the front office.
All right, shameless plug. I did write an article as well on why Chris Ballard has to go. So go
let's ride.
All right, so those of you who watched tonight, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Make sure that you like this video, of course. Also, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate you, and we want you to keep getting this really good content. Of course, hit the bells, too, so you get all the notifications for Stadium Rant and our content. We do have several shows. So we do have this show, which is Necessary Roughness. We also have Another Damn Fantasy podcast. They do their show live. We've got Rumbles of Red, which if you've seen Trevor down in the comments, that's his show as well. Which focuses on the daily fantasy sports. And then, of course, we got The Bounce, which is our basketball-focused show, which is really awesome. It's run by Kev and James, and you'll love their content, too. I mean, it's just as riveting as our stuff. So, hey, we're completely biased here, but go watch it. Of course, you can find all of our content on stadiumrant.com/NFL. We also have a podcast that can be found on all of our podcasts can be found on Spotify underneath NFL on Stadium Rant Podcast. And as always, there are no flags here for roughness, but the comments are necessary. So happy holidays to all of you that are watching, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully it's just as crazy because that gives us more good content. See ya.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.